and we'll get started. And thank you all for coming. I would love to, so I'm Monica, I work for the Olympia Food Co-op, and I'm going to teach you to cook 4 things today that are some of my favorite things, and some things that I just came up with when Sarah gave me the ingredient list that you all would have from the garden. And so that was fun. It was like one of those game shows where they're like, here's your ingredients, go. Or not game shows, but cooking shows. So I developed a soup and a bean dip that share ingredients. I've made the bean dip before. It's delicious. Some fun little tricks in that. And then we're gonna cook up that delicata squash that you all have. I think a few of you have a different kind of squash, but it should work the same way. And although you may, is it kabocha? What's the other squash that folks have?
It's a red curry.
Red curry. And Caleb, do you know if you can eat the skin on a red curry?
You can, but
Okay.
it is, yeah, it's totally edible. It's a little bit thicker than your delicata skin, though.
Delicata. Okay, perfect. So we'll just cook them the same way, and then let's see, soup, squash. Oh, and then the leeks. Since there's 2 leeks, I wanted to share just a leek recipe that's one of my favorite. I'm also gonna attach, if I can figure out if we've got time to do that, a TikTok of some braised leeks that I really like. It's a vegan recipe, really delicious, good over rice and stuff. So I'm gonna share that with you all after the class. So let's get started. Is everybody ready? Sweet.
Monica, sorry, one question. We've got students unable to join who apparently tried both the Eventbrite link and the Zoom link. Can you share the direct Zoom link, and I'll try sharing that with students, because the way Eventbrite works, we can't access that, but maybe you could and share it with us.
I have just the Zoom link on
Thank you.
Document that I can put in the chat, and then can you get it from there?
Yep, thank you.
Of course. Oh, that's a bummer. I wonder why. Is that not working?
It looks like we'll need the passcode that goes with that too, if we're not able to use the direct link through Eventbrite.
I don't think there's a passcode. Copy. Paste. It's not letting me copy and paste. Why is that?
It often doesn't with that. I'm so sorry, but I think you have to, type it in. Or you could speak it out loud and I'll type it.
Oh, well, it's, it's a Zoom.
Oh yeah, forget it.
Super long. Can I email it to you, Sarah?
Yes, yes, that would be great.
Great. It's weird. It worked fine last time. I don't remember this happening.
No, but it worked differently on my computer as well. And last time there was a passcode. And last time the Zoom link was available as well as the passcode. And this time they're not available. I'm sorry why I had to unmute, because I couldn't share that with students.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, so something is different this time.
Oh, I wonder what that could be. I did everything the same way.
Caleb, while we're working on this, and Monica, apologies, but maybe it will help other people as well. Caleb, can you tell us who you are? Because some students haven't even met you, students who joined winter quarter and you graduated fall, just for everyone. Who are you and why are we in debt to you for these ingredients we're using?
Well, thanks, Sarah. My name is Caleb Poppy. I just graduated from Evergreen. Fall quarter was my last quarter. I've been working with Sarah Williams for a couple years now. She's been my professor and mentor and support coach and life coach, and just an all-around amazing person. I in my last few years at Evergreen, really dove into the agricultural sciences, and as one of my final projects and as my capstone project as an undergrad, teamed up with a bunch of my peer students at Evergreen, and we took a plot of the community garden that hadn't been used for several years and had just been overgrown, and we put in hours and hours and hours of work, and took it was about 2,000 square feet little garden space, and turned it into this biodynamic, biodiverse little food garden that we used to grow a bunch of food for various workshops with the class, and to feed students, and to learn about regenerative agriculture, and to also just have a beautiful excuse to come outside and gather in the sun and hang out and get our hands dirty and do some physical labor. And so the vegetables that the Evergreen students are that are in attendance today that they're using came out of that garden. So these Delicata squash were squash that we grew, the red curry squash we grew. We had leeks that we were going to they melted in the snow in our Olympia snowstorm. All the beans came from our garden plot. And that's kind of the last of the reserves that we have from that previous growing season. But we pumped out a lot of food in that little amount of space.
That is super cool. And thank you for sharing with me, Sarah. Sarah brought me a bag to the co-op, and so I'm cooking the vegetables you all grew. So I feel part of the class in a
Wow, that's amazing
way. Yeah. So welcome. My apologies to those of you that the Zoom link didn't work. I'm glad you're here now. Thank you, Sarah. How were you able to copy and paste onto here?
I went into a Word doc first. You can go into Word and come back out again. You just often can't go directly.
I see. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, I'm glad it worked. Well, I'd like to get started just so that we can get everything done today, because we got a big agenda ahead of us cooking. But while we're chopping and doing that stuff, we can chat some more about the class, about cooking, about whatever you all like to do. That's one of my favorite things about cooking with other people, is it gives you a lot of time to talk. And I often say that the deli department at the co-op is the closest department, because we sit around chopping food and talking, and get to know each other a little better. And in some of the other departments, they're busy with customers, busy doing things, and don't have that opportunity. So cooking is a real joy for me, and I'm just delighted to share it with all of you. So the first thing we want to do is preheat our ovens, well, we're going to be cooking, we're going to be cooking garlic and the squash. So probably our ovens, but if you have a big toaster oven, you can use that as well. Preheat it to 400 degrees. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our beans cooking. And I said in the ingredients list, in the recipes, to use a quart of broth to cook your beans in. It can be any kind of broth: chicken broth, veggie broth, beef broth, whatever you like. We talked about this in the last one. I make my own broth, and I freeze it in old yogurt containers. And I put, everything that would get thrown in the compost, like the squishy parts of the onion ends and carrot ends and garlic, like the garlic that's left in the garlic press, or ginger bits, or whatever you have. I throw bones. I threw some shrimp skins in this one. You know, whatever you're might be going to throw away that can make your broth delicious and nutritious, go ahead and do that. So I used a 2 quart. I thawed a 2 quart broth thing. So I'm going to put half of it into another pot to save for the soup, and I'm going to go ahead and throw my beans into 1 quart of broth. I have mine soaking. These beans are so beautiful. I was just like in awe of them. I've never cooked with scarlet runner beans, so I'm really excited. There was this little brown guy with like a red stripe through him. What kind is that, Caleb?
That's called the tiger's eye from high mowing. And I threw a few of those in each bag so people could just see the various beans we grew.
Gorgeous. And then this one that's white with a black.
I've always called those the cow bean, but the variety is Calypso.
Yes, I read about those. So I'm gonna drain my beans from their soaking water. If you're using canned beans, then you can just set those aside, and we'll be putting those in the soup. And I'm putting them in my broth, and I'm putting them on the stove, and I'm sprinkling in a little salt. And then we're just gonna let those do their thing, and hopefully, if, you know, Sarah said, you said yours took a half hour to cook, that would be perfect, because that's about the time that we're gonna want them. So what you want to do is bring them to a boil, and then put them on a simmer. And we'll just simmer them while we are doing the next thing. So the next thing is, does everybody have a head of garlic? Pull out your head of garlic. Take off the outer skins, but not enough so any of the cloves fall off. Just kind of peel off the outer skin of your garlic. And then once we get those, most of the outer skins off, we're gonna cut the top off, but just enough to like expose the garlic cloves. Just the very tip top. So that it looks like this. And then I have some that are kind of on the outside. And I'm gonna open them up a little bit so they can get the olive oil. Okay, so my garlic clove is ready to roast. And I'm assuming a lot of you have done this before, but if not, roasting your own garlic is so easy. So I'm putting it in a little pan, cute little like butter pan. And then I'm taking some olive oil, and I'm just gonna lightly sprinkle the olive oil, just lightly drizzle it over the top so that it can soak in there. So it looks, now it looks the same, but it's covered in olive oil. And I'm gonna throw that in my oven. Alrighty. Now let's go ahead and chop up our squash. So I've got my delicata. I've washed it. Oh, and let me just say these garlic bits that come off the top when you cut your garlic, throw those in your, if you're making your own broth, throw those in your broth bag in the freezer, and they'll really add to the flavor. I've got a few little like growths, little hard growths on my squash, so I'm gonna kind of just trim those off with a knife, because we're gonna eat the peels of these. The peels of delicata are delicious, so you don't have to peel them. Okay, so I'm ready. I'm gonna chop off each end. Those ends are going in my broth bag. And I'm gonna put it on in like a pillar, and I'm gonna cut it in half. Can you all see over here? Yeah. I'm gonna cut it right in half. Then I'm gonna take a spoon and scrape the seeds out and the pith out, so that you have just the squash meat when you're done. All right, has everybody got their squashes clean so they look like this? Now I'm gonna chop them into half moons. So into bite-sized, delicious little pieces. Sarah, was that you who said your daughter thought delicata was candy?
My two sons, my kids, because when they were little, I cut it small, just these half moon shapes, tossed it in olive oil, and then roasted it until it was caramelized. And they literally thought it was candy, especially when mixed with red beets.
I love it. It is so sweet. It tastes like candy. So you got your little half moons. They look like this. Okay, my beans are at a boil, so I'm going to turn them down to a simmer. Let them go. Okay, so this is my favorite way to cook delicata. But if I do a brown butter sage over it, and then I roast it. So I'm going to teach you all that. If you're vegan, don't eat butter, you can do this with olive oil and sage. So feel free to do that. You don't want to brown your olive oil though, but brown butter has just such a lovely nutty flavor that it imparts. So I'm going to take my butter. What did I say in the recipe? Like a tablespoon of butter. You know, of course, depending on how much, 2 tablespoons, how much your squash you're cooking. You know, we're just doing the smaller amounts today. Often, if I'm just eating dinner by myself, I'll just cook up 1 squash, and that's perfect for dinner. But if I'm cooking for more folks, then I throw in a bunch of squash and just increase the butter. So we're gonna take our butter and we're gonna melt it, or we're gonna put it on a burner, kind of on medium high maybe. And then we're gonna take our sage. And I have a little herb garden that I grow, so I've got sage that I pulled out of my garden. If you have fresh sage, that's great. If you just have dried sage, you can just use that, sprinkle that into the butter. But I'm gonna chop up my sage leaves here. And now we're just gonna wait until let's go ahead and put our squash into something we can bake it in. It doesn't matter what, something ceramic, something glass, whatever oven safe dish. I'm gonna use one of my little cast iron pans. I'm putting it in here. And now we're gonna wait till the butter browns up. So while the butter browns up, we can start chopping our leeks. Got these beautiful leeks. And these were grown in the garden.
I'm going to let Caleb talk about the leeks that we did grow, and Carly is with us, and I have a vivid memory of the leeks we did grow being taller than Carly. However, these came from a different organic grower because...
Well, I kind of briefly mentioned it, but we had a beautiful leek patch. They took really well. There's a really good picture of Carly with their leek as we were harvesting, and they held the tips of the leek up, and it was taller than they were. It was a great photo that I don't know, just attests to the power of the community garden, I think. But we used those in a few different soup workshops that we did during the fall quarter, and then over the winter snowstorm, we had the leeks they melted, and went out there after the snowstorm to check on them, and they were just goopy and gluey all the way through. But there was just enough left. We barely lost any in the end, and it's part of the process, I suppose. But it was a beautiful leek patch. But we wanted some leeks for this soup workshop, so we outsourced, if you will.
Thanks for that story. The weather can be a curse and a blessing both. Thank you. All right, my butter's starting to sizzle, so I'm gonna watch it. And it's gonna go from melted butter to kind of a brown butter. And this process is kind of important to keep an eye on because it can go from brown butter to burnt butter real fast. It's one of those situations. So keep an eye on your butter, and let's get it nice and brown. Give your beans a stir while you're at the stove. Okay, my butter's starting to get a little color. You can smell that nutty flavor. It's one of those things. My family comes from Louisiana, my mom's family, and we make a a shrimp gumbo, a family recipe of shrimp gumbo, and you make a roux with flour and oil, and you stir it until it's just the right color, which is like a deep, rich brown, almost black. And it's that same thing where it's like a minute too long and it's going to be burnt roux, but you want to get it as close to that edge as possible, and then you get this delicious flavor. All right, my butter's there. So it's brown, it's got little brown flecks in it. It's one of my favorite things to cook with. I'm going to pour that over my squash. And then I'm gonna put sprinkle on my chopped sage. And then, sorry, I had to run back to my larder for some more salt. I cook with kosher salt, which I enjoy cooking with, but sea salt works fine too. I'm going to sprinkle the salt over my delicata. I'm going to grind some pepper on there. Now, if you're using olive oil, you just do the same thing. You just put drizzle the olive oil over it. And now I'm just stirring it up with my hands so that everything's incorporated. And that's going in the oven, along with my garlic. Oops. All right, now we're ready to chop our leeks. And this is that moment where we get to talk about things while we're chopping our leeks. So we're going to chop both the leeks together, but we're going to use them in two different things. So we're going to just chop the ends off and then throw the ends in our broth bag in the freezer, and then we're going to just chop them into rounds.
I missed a minute or so. Right now we're supposed to have the squash covered in brown butter with sage and salt, and then in the oven.
Salt and pepper.
Salt and pepper.
And then squish it all together so that it's all incorporated, and put it in the oven next to your garlic.
Okay.
And then we're going to chop leeks. Oh, I have coffee for you. You don't want it?
Would you be able to show us how you cut your leeks?
Yeah, so I chop the ends off.
Okay.
Those are going in my broth bag. And I'm just going to set them right next to each other, and I'm going to just slice them. See these thin slices?
Perfect.
Just like that.
Thank you.
They don't have to be super thin. And while we're chopping our leeks, can somebody describe this class that you all are in briefly, and just in case there's community folks here, let folks know what you're doing, what the class is about.
I can say a little bit. I think well, today obviously we're all cooking together, and last quarter we had like in-person tasting classes as well. So yeah, I mean, our program's called Taste What We Hunger For. It's focused around food, and we get to go outside and work on the farm. Caleb was speaking about that a little bit earlier. We got to kind of tend it from fall, and then I think he graduated the end of winter. And so yeah, we're just kind of like wrapping up the year. Spring quarter's coming around, and we're gonna do some ILCs possibly, where students can take everything that they've done so far and expand on personal interests. Whether that be like doing a website, working at Grub, if anyone knows what Grub is. There's a lot of possibilities where you want to take the class. So yeah, but I love these sessions where we get to cook together. That's definitely like one of my favorite components for sure.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything to add? All right, then I guess I'll tell you where I learned about cheesy leeks. So I was lucky enough to get over to Europe with my band. We toured in Ireland. They love old time music over there. So we did a 2-week tour in Ireland, which was amazing. I'd never been there. It was incredible. And then I was like, well, while I'm over here, I've always had this dream of walking on the trails in England and climbing over stills and stiles and walking through sheep meadows and all of that. And in England, they have right of way. So if the trails go through farms, go through estates, go through towns, and nobody's going to chase you off with a shotgun. So it's a pretty amazing place to go on long walks. And so I did the Cotswold Trail, walked for 100 miles, and stopped at a little pub for Sunday roast, which is a big meal they have at the pubs on Sunday. And thanks, Sarah. And they had like a big chunk of meat and then all these vegetables, and one of the vegetables was cheesy leeks, and it was so delicious. And I was like, okay, I'm bringing that home. So I cook it at home a lot. I make them for the salad bar. I liken them to mac and cheese, but with leeks instead of noodles. So they're a little healthier and a little more delicious. So we've got our pile of leeks now. Has everybody got their leeks chopped? We got this lovely pile of leeks. Leeks can be tricky dirt-wise. At work, I just chop them up and then wash them. I wash the outsides of mine, but often the insides will have little bits of dirt. So check them out, and if you need to rinse off some of the slices. But these are just gorgeous. I mean, they're like a work of art. Look at these beauties. They're just so pretty. So we're going to take half our leeks, and we're going to put them in our soup pot. And we're going to put in, what did I say, olive oil? Now I can't remember my exact yeah. So put a little olive oil in the bottom of your pot. Give your beans a stir while you're over here, so make sure they're not sticking to the bottom of the pan. And I'm going to put my pan on like medium heat, and I'm gonna put half my leeks in there. And then I'm gonna put a medium-sized pan on that I'm gonna fill with water. Fill about 2/3 of the way with water. Like you're gonna cook noodles, but we're gonna cook the leeks instead. So a little pan of water, big enough to submerge the rest of the leeks in water, but we're not gonna put the leeks in yet. We're gonna get the water boiling first, just like they're noodles. Sprinkle a little salt in there and let that come to a boil. How's everybody doing? Okay, looks like most of you have got that on. So now we're going to chop our potatoes for our soup. We should have 2 pounds of potatoes washed up. If you need a minute, you can wash those. Mine are still in their colander. I have a mixed bag, blues, reds, yellows.
And folks, I shared this with Monica already. I happened to have no potatoes when a friend and I were trying this recipe last week. And one of us had a parsnip, and then someone wanted to try a celeriac, which no one had ever cooked with in this way before. So I just want you to know that if you want a really, really tasty soup, the kind that you might like get at a restaurant, like a 1/4 cup, because it's so powerful. Substitute celeriac and parsnip for the potatoes, but don't try to serve it to your young children.
I love that, Sarah. That's the beauty of cooking, is you can do so many variations, and I love experimentation. And often experimentation comes out of, oh shit, I don't have that ingredient. What am I going to do instead? So. Well, while we're chopping our potatoes, so we're going to chop our potatoes. They don't need to be just into chunks. They don't even need, the soup is going to be mashed, so it really doesn't matter. We're just chopping them so that they cook a little easier. So while we're chopping our potatoes, are there any folks here that are not part of the Evergreen Taste class that want to introduce themselves, say hello, say where you heard about the class? Sounds like it's all you all or people that are shy. So my stuff on the stove here is sizzling away. My leeks are sizzling. I'm going to give them a quick stir. Come back to chopping my potatoes. While we're chopping potatoes, what's some of y'all's favorite soups?
Beef stew.
I do love beef stew.
I love a kale Italian sausage soup with tomatoes, chopped up tomatoes, herby, really light, delicious.
That sounds amazing.
I like tortilla soup.
I do too. Yum. Have any of you thought about teaching a co-op class?
Never knew that was a possibility.
An absolute possibility. You could share some of your favorite recipes. You could share tips on gardening. We've had every kind of community class. You know, people do like homemade remedies, how to grow chickens, or how to raise chickens in your backyard. Just a variety of classes. So you're sharing your skills with the community. And that we don't pay teachers, but you get to share your skills with the community. If you're, have a product, you can promote that. What else are the benefits? You can get working member credit at the co-op. And that gives you discounts on groceries. That's a fun incentive. You get to practice your teaching skills. Probably before too long, we can have in-person classes. So you cook something up. We use the Grub Farmhouse. We use places where there's a big size kitchen and then everybody gets to taste the food. Right now they're free because we're purchasing our own ingredients. But in the future, we'll probably go back to charging $7 a class just to cover ingredients, but we try to keep them accessible for folks, so we never charged more than that.
Yeah, that is awesome. I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for future classes, and I don't really have something that comes to mind. I'm like, the community needs to know this, but maybe in the future, as I cook more down the line, I might just have to look into it.
Yeah, well, give it some thought. Think about what your skills are and what you'd like to share. I love sharing recipes that I love.
Awesome. Also, are we, once our water is boiled, should we start adding in some of those leeks?
Oh, is your water boiling? Mine's not yet.
Okay, mine's up.
Go ahead and put your leeks in.
Okay.
And we're going to boil our leeks until they're just soft. So really not very long, maybe depending on how thick you cut them, like anywhere from like 4 to 7 minutes. Keep an eye on them when you can kind of tell that they're, when you can pick one up and kind of squish it a little bit. You don't want them just on the soft side of firm.
Now, is this for the potato soup or is this for the cheesy leeks that we're boiling the leeks?
We're boiling the leeks for the cheesy leeks.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we're sauteing the leeks in olive oil. Sorry, dog alert for the soup. I can hear my sauteed leeks sauteing away over here, so I'm going to give them a stir.
And that's for the soup?
That's for the soup, yep. So your sauteed leeks should be in a soup pot. We'll give my beans a stir. I'm not gonna wet that pot or it'll never boil. All right, so let me see what's next on the soup. We're probably gonna put some fragrant things into our soup now.
How long is the squash going in the oven for?
Well, let's check our stuff in the oven. So we want our garlic to be brown and soft. We want our squash to be caramelized, like Sarah said, like soft all the way through and browned a little bit on the edges.
Can I ask a question if anyone, I got a little bit lost because I thought we were cooking the beans and we were going to take them out and do the soup separately, but are we adding things to the bean pot while the beans are cooking?
No, the beans are just simmering in their broth. And what we're going to do with the beans is we're going to make a bean dip, and then we're going to use half of it to just eat. It's just so delicious. It's got the roasted garlic in it. It's amazing. And then we're going to use half to thicken our soup, and it adds this incredible flavor and the protein from the beans. So the beans should just be simmering away in their pot. We've got the leeks sauteing. We've got the things in the oven. My garlic is looking really close. How's everybody else's garlic looking?
And so you have a separate soup pot going.
Yeah.
Separate. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's a soup pot going. There's a pot of hot water to put half our leeks in. Half our leeks are in the soup pot sizzling in olive oil.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. I think my garlic is done. No, I'm gonna leave it in there a little longer. It's browned. It looks like this, but it's still a little firm. So I'm gonna leave it, put it back in there. What are other folks' garlic and squash looking like? Does anybody feel like they're done?
Mine is pretty brown, but I'm probably going to leave it in there a bit longer.
Okay. Yeah, mine's getting brown, but it's still a little, needs a little more time to soften. My leeks, on the other hand, are getting soft and brown. How about everybody else's? Are your leeks coming along? The ones that you're sauteing? Okay. Yeah? Oh,
Slowly.
yeah? You're not quite ready?
No, I'm probably going to give them a little bit longer. I just got them sauteing like a couple minutes ago.
Everybody's so at a different temperature. Everybody's, you know, ovens are different, so they probably are going to be coming up at different times. My leeks are ready. So what I'm going to do is throw in my chopped potatoes on top of my leeks.
Did she say potatoes go in on top of the leeks now?
Yeah, if your leeks are soft and kind of starting to brown, then go ahead and throw your potatoes right on top of them. I'm going to sprinkle on salt and pepper onto my potatoes.
I'm sure it's.
Yes.
The leeks are ready to drain when they're soft, just barely soft, not, you know, just past firm soft. Okay, now we're gonna sprinkle salt and pepper over our potatoes. And now I'm gonna pour in my second quart of broth over the potatoes. Oh, I forgot to mention, don't drain the water into the sink from your leeks. Drain it into a bowl. You want to preserve that delicious leek cooking water. Has anybody drained their leeks yet?
Same thing for your beans. When we get to the bean draining, save that broth from your beans. You might use it today or at some future point.
Thank you, Sarah. Exactly. I've always done this because, well, you know, pasta water, you thicken your pasta sauces with your pasta water, you know, the water that you cook stuff in is so valuable in flavor and nutrition. So I've always done that. And apparently I haven't got to that part yet, but in this month's Bon Appetit, they have a whole thing on using pot liquor, which is what they call the stuff that's left in the pot. So it's an age-old tradition. My water's finally boiling, so I'm putting my leeks in. I know some of you are past that point. I'm gonna set up my draining system now so I don't forget to save that good water. All right, let's check on our squash and our garlic. Ooh, really nice. My squash is nearly there. I'm gonna let it caramelize up a little more. And my garlic is nearly there, but I'm gonna let them go a little bit longer. Okay, so let's take inventory. You should have leeks that are either boiling or just done boiled in water. You've poured them out so that you've got the water in a bowl and your leeks cooling. You have a pot of beans that are simmering. Stir those from time to time so they don't stick to the bottom. You have a soup pot that has leeks, broth, and potatoes in there, and that should be simmering. We got garlic and squash in the oven. Yeah? Everybody good? Awesome. Okay, let's make the cheesy leek sauce. So, first thing we're gonna do is melt butter into a saucepan, and I have the actual amounts in the recipe. So I think I said a tablespoon, a couple tablespoons. All of the amounts are kind of dependent on the size of your leek, and typically you're not going to just make a one leek cheesy leek unless it's just for yourself for dinner. But you want, if you make like 4 leeks, you got a big old pan of cheesy leeks, and you can eat on them all week. So I'm going to melt my butter into a saucepan. I might just go ahead and cook my leeks in the pan that I use. So if you want to do that, you can use a slightly larger pan. We're just going to make a cheese sauce, and you can put your leeks into it or you can pour it over your leeks. So take whatever you're going to cook your leeks with in, and if it's going to be the same pan as your sauce, then you can get started on the sauce. If you're going to cook them in a separate pan in the oven, go ahead and butter that pan so the leeks don't stick to it. Take some butter and spread it all, just rub it all over the bottom of your pan. I'm going to go ahead and cook mine in an iron skillet, like I cook everything. One thing I love about iron skillets is they cook really evenly. They also impart some iron into your food, so they're great for women who tend to be low iron. I just love them. So giving my beans a stir, giving my soup a stir. Okay, so I've got my oven in my skillet, and I'm gonna let that butter melt. I'm sorry, I got that butter in my skillet. Did I say that? I'm gonna let that butter melt, and I'm gonna grab a thickener. You can use cornstarch, you can use flour, arrowroot, whatever you like to use to thicken sauces. And we're gonna do, I think, a couple tablespoons of that into the melted butter, or a tablespoon, whatever size your leeks are. we're out of all-purpose flour, so I'm going to use cornstarch. I use cornstarch at work so that they're gluten-free and accessible to more people. I think my leeks are probably boiled to their appropriate softness. Let me check on them. Oh yeah, they're looking good. So I'm going to pour them into the strainer in the pot of water so that we save that good liquid. Okay. How's everybody doing? Good. Let's check on our garlic and squash while our butter's melting. All righty. I'm going to say mine are done. Look at my garlic. It's like bursting out the seams. This is beautiful brown. I'm going to set that aside to cool. Does anybody else want to show their garlic? Let's see those beauties. Nice. Yes, nice and brown. Lovely. Okay, my squash, I think, is also done. Look at this gorgeousness. Browns, soft, incorporated all those amazing flavors. Anybody want to show their squash? Anybody else's squash done? Oh, look at that. You got the puree, right? Does it seem
It's the
like
Delicata.
Oh, it is a Delicata. Lovely. And does it seem like it's done to you, or does it need a little longer?
I don't know. I think it maybe needs a little longer.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does it feel soft?
Yeah, yeah,
Soft. Okay.
that's good. Yeah.
Cool. Then I guess we're done.
Oh,
All right. Those of you that have your squash, give it a taste. Mmm. Oh, that's gorgeous. Lovely. Yummy. Okay, let's not burn our butter. Sorry. We'll come back to the squash tasting in a minute, but my butter was going a little nuts on the stove. So we're going to put in our thickener. I think I said a tablespoon and a tablespoon. So you want equal thickener to your butter. I'm going to use a whisk, and I'm going to stir that thickener right in there. And stir it up until it's fully incorporated. All right, my cornstarch is in there. It's sizzling with the butter. Now I'm going to take my milk and how much did I say of that to put in? And there's my phone. So a half a cup of milk. I have to check because I never use. I make this so much I don't really use amounts. So I'm just going to pour some milk in. So put in your half a cup of milk. Now when you pour your milk in, it's gonna kind of turn lumpy on you. So just keep whisking it until you get till it smooths out. You get a smooth sauce, and it will start to thicken pretty much immediately. Okay, does everybody got kind of a thick, creamy sauce for your cheesy leeks? Lovely. Okay, now we're gonna take what did I say, a teaspoonful of Dijon mustard, half a teaspoon. So a dab of Dijon mustard, and we're gonna stir that in. And then we're gonna had a moment where I thought my housemates ate my cheese, but I found just enough. So I'm gonna grate my cheddar cheese. While my sauce bubbles. I'm using this cheese. Cheddar cheese is my favorite cheddar cheese. We sell at the co-op. It's Beecher's. I think they're localish. Could be wrong about that, but
You're right. Beecher's is in Seattle.
It is in Seattle. I thought so. So here's this beautiful pile of cheese. I'm going to put in. Switch from a whisk to a spoon, or you're going to get a lump. Our sauce is pretty thick. We're going to take our some of our leek water, and we're going to pour that in until it makes a nice creamy sauce. I'm going to add the salt and pepper. The point where you get a consistency that you like, and you kind of want like a thick soup, not even soup, just a thick sauce. That's how you mind. And some salt, add some pepper. All right, here's what mine looks like. Everybody see that? It's like saucy. Everybody having luck with their cheesy leek sauce? Okay. So you can use that water to get it whatever, to this nice consistency. At this point, taste it. How does it taste? It should taste really delicious. Kind of surprisingly delicious, huh? All right, at this point, you're gonna pour the sauce over your leeks, or you're gonna add it to your pan if you use the same pan you're gonna cook them in. All right, and then stir them up so that the leeks and the cheese sauce are all incorporated. Yum.
Alexa, play Mac Dre.
What's that, Casey?
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize my audio was on. We're getting some music going up in here.
All right, so there's a couple things you can do. So mine are all incorporated. They look like this. Now there's a couple things you can do if you want to, but not necessary. You can add some extra grated cheese to the top so you get that nice brown crust on the top. I forgot to reserve any cheese, so I'm gonna sprinkle some breadcrumbs on top of mine. That's another thing you can do. If you want a nice brown pretty crust. You don't have to do either. They taste good just baked just like that. All right, now we're gonna throw our leeks back into the oven, or not into the oven for the first time, but back into our heated oven. All right, let's give our beans a stir and see how they're doing. Okay, I just tasted my beans. They're almost there, real close. Not quite as creamy as I like. They sure taste good. I think scarlet runner beans are also called butter beans. So if we have time, I have a video, if I can find it, a video of my band doing cornbread and butter beans, which is an old time song about food. A lot of old time songs are about food or death. Not too often about love. It's kind of hard to sometimes to find a repertoire to play a wedding. But anyway, how are other people's beans doing? Good. You should also have your pot of leeks and potatoes. They should be softening up at this point, kind of incorporating. Charlie, tell us, you're doing the leek sauce? Nice. Okay. Good.
So I pour it over the leeks and then throw that whole thing in the oven at 400.
Yep, pour it over the leeks, kind of stir them in and put it all in the oven. Give people a minute to catch up. Drink water. Everybody hydrate. Yay for water. All right, let's grab our garlics. We've got these lovely garlics. They should be cool enough now to handle. I'm going to get myself a little bowl here. And I'm going to start taking the peels off of my garlic. So sometimes you can just squeeze them right out of the peel. Sometimes you got to take them off, but look at this soft, luscious garlic inside these peels. You can just peel them right out of there. So you'll end up with a bowl full of this amazing roasted garlic.
Monica, can you talk about why you roast it and how the flavors of garlic change so much depending on how much or how long it is or isn't cooked or chopped?
Yeah, well, yeah, I bet we all have tasted them in different varieties, whether we know it or not. Okay, so like the flavor of pesto, you're eating raw garlic and you get that sharp, very garlicky flavor that kind of you can taste the rest of the day. So raw garlic is the most potent. Garlic is very good for you. There's a Les Blank film called Garlic is as Good as 10 Mothers or something. I don't remember the name, but it's all about garlic and how people use garlic. And I encourage people to watch that and any other Les Blank film you can get your hands on because they're wonderful. And then, then we saute garlic for soups or to put into dishes, and that cuts the flavor somewhat, but then adds that delicious aromatic garlic flavor to your soups and sauces. So like think spaghetti sauce, that kind of flavor, different garlic flavor. And then there's the roasted garlic, and that is a whole nother flavor. And there probably aren't that many recipes you're going to put a whole entire head of garlic into, but when you roast it, that's the most mellow way to eat garlic. So it imparts this delicious, and roasted garlic tastes different. It has its own flavor. Take a little nibble off of one of your cloves, and it's just this kind of mellow, warm flavor. So we're going to put this entire head of roasted garlic into our bean dip. And so when I get to the middle, I can just kind of squeeze them out. See, like popping a pimple. Squeeze your garlic right out of there. It's not a very appetizing metaphor, but.
And you're adding them straight into your bean bowl right now?
No, I'm just putting them in a separate bowl.
Okay.
I haven't drained my beans yet. I'm going to give them a little more time, but I'm pretty close. They're real close. While people are peeling their garlic, let's go back to that squash tasting. So mine tastes delicious. How does other people's taste? Mmm. Anybody?
It's so good.
What are some other ways people cook delicata squash? This is my favorite way. What's your favorite way?
Honestly, I think this is the only way I've ever cooked squash other than our previous soup classes where we're adding them into the soup. So.
Yeah, soup does make, or squash does make a lovely soup addition because it sweetens things up. Charlie, how's your squash?
It's really, really good. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and my sister have been pecking at it.
Yeah. It's hard not to. I just ate a bunch of it. Yum. All right, how are people's potatoes coming? Are your potatoes and leek dish softening up? Oh. Thanks for all the links, Sarah. You're doing such a great job as the link moderator. Sarah's kids like to dip their squash in ketchup. That sounds terrible to me, but you know, kids love ketchup.
And barbecue sauces.
Yeah.
Ellie and Susan, I'm curious, how does yours taste? Would you do it like this again?
Yeah, for sure. It's really good.
Sorry, I stepped away. How does which taste?
Your squash.
Oh my gosh, I'm eating the whole thing right now.
Yeah, I'll probably finish mine.
Okay. Are people's potatoes soft enough to mash?
Mine could use a little longer.
Okay. Well, let's cook them a little longer. How are people's beans doing? Are your beans soft enough to blend up? Oh my God, these are so creamy.
I tasted them after I cooked them earlier today, and they're the best beans I've ever had. The Scarlet
They're
Run.
amazing.
I can't believe it. They're so good.
I can see why they're called butter beans. They just are like creamy as butter. All right, well, let's drain our beans. Again, don't drain them into the sink, drain them into a bowl so you got that good bean cooking liquid. Now you should have 2 sprigs of rosemary. So I'm going to set one aside because we're going to do something really fun with the rosemary for the bean dip.
My mom's bird wanted to come and say hello to everyone.
Oh, well, hello.
Her name's Coconut.
Hi, Coconut.
Oh, cool.
She's just been rescued. I flew into town because she flew away and we found her.
Oh my gosh, Coconut, this is not your climate.
No.
Well, I'm in Chicago. I'm not, so it's way less her climate.
Oh yes, even worse.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you were found, Coconut. That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, it was terrible, but she's very sweet.
Thanks for sharing. Coconut, you are adorable. I'm gonna peek at my leeks. They're bubbling in a way in there, making the kitchen smell like heaven. All right, so we're gonna take our beans and we are going to add our cooked beans, peeled garlic and juice, lemon juice. So we're gonna juice half of a lemon.
Are we juicing this directly into the beans too?
We're going to be combining all of the beans, the garlic, and the lemon.
Sweet.
Into it could go into your blender, your food processor, or you can mash it by hand. A fork or a masher. We're gonna strip not both, but just one of the things of rosemary. And we're gonna add that. So we're gonna put our beans, rosemary, juice of half a lemon. Some olive oil. And the garlic. And let's throw in some salt and pepper. We did salt the beans, but let's throw in a little bit more salt in. I'm gonna put some olive oil in there to Okay, now have your bean juice ready to, or your leek juice, either one would taste good, to add to this as it blends or as you're mashing it so that you get a bean dip consistency, so like a thick paste.
Can I start mashing my soup?
I'm sorry, what?
Can I start mashing the soup if it's ready?
Sure. Have you blended your beans?
Yeah, I made the bean dip this morning,
Oh,
actually.
lovely. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead and take a masher and mash your soup up. I'm gonna pour a little more bean juice in my beans. Start mashing the soup. Let's check on our leeks. Nearly there on my end.
Mom wanted me to put sausage in the soup. Should I put that in at this point, or should I have already done that?
I'm sorry, what?
My mom wanted me to put sausage. She has this some kind of sausage she wanted me to put in the soup. Should I have done that already, or should I do it at this
Well,
point?
if you haven't done it at this point, why don't you go ahead and fry it up in a separate pan so that it brings out all the flavors, and then you can just add it when we add stir it in just before we add the radicchio.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Do that. So my bean dip looks like this. It's like a paste. Let me put it into a bowl so you can see it better. I think it's beautiful. Although I probably would only use this color beans for at home, because I don't know if a bean dip this color would sell. I usually use white beans, and you know, when you're cooking professionally, you have to think about colors people will buy, that kind of stuff. But these homegrown beans are just going to make the most amazing bean dip. So it's a thick consistency. See how it just globs off the spoon? That's what you want. And probably depending on the type of beans you got, you probably have different color bean dips. I think the last time when I did my recipe developing, I used cranberry beans, which are kind of red and white. They were delicious. All right, so give your bean dip a taste. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Anyone else? Yeah, is it delicious? So that garlic, like you can really taste the garlic, you can taste the lemon, the creaminess of the beans just creates this lovely palate. Anybody else taste their beans? What do you think?
They're very good. I'm adding another half of a lemon too, though, just because I kind of want to have a little bit more citrus.
Exactly. So do it the way you like it. Yeah, good.
I'm also gonna do more lemon, I think.
Yeah, sure.
It's so good though.
You got it. We're gonna add some lemon to the soup as well. So I'm gonna take half of my bean dip and I'm gonna add it to my mashed potatoes and leeks in the soup. So at this point, your soup is probably super thick, right? It's not even really a soup. It's just like a pile of food. So what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to stir in bean juice, leek juice until you get a soupy consistency. You want it to be a thick soup. It's a hearty soup, but you're gonna thin it out with those delicious pot liquors. Okay, now I have a nice thick soup consistency. It's got a little bit of chunky potatoes. It's got that bean dip, adding that rosemary garlic beanie flavor. So now we're going to do the finishing touches on the bean dip and the soup. I'm going to peek at my leeks. They're doing good. They're getting there. All right, so we're going to take two separate pans and we're going to add like a tablespoon of olive oil and heat them pretty high, like put them on a medium high. One should be long enough to fit your whole sprig of rosemary. I'm going to use this long guy and my whole sprig of rosemary is going to fit right on there. And we're gonna put our bean dip into a pretty serving bowl. I've got this pretty bowl made by Lisa David. Do you all know her? She and her brother Jacob own Nineveh. She's also a potter. I'm going to use my Lisa bowl because I love it. Put my bean dip in there. So it looks like that. And then in my other pot, I'm going to heat up olive oil, or my other pan. Just enough to cover the bottom of the pan, and I'm gonna chop my radicchio. And thanks again for bringing me garden radicchio. I feel super special about that. So I'm just chopping it into pieces, and we're gonna fry it, and we're gonna put it on top of the soup. But before you fry it, give it a taste. Mmm. So juicy, got that bitter tang. So radicchio, if you can deal with the bitter, is delicious on salads mixed in with the lettuce. So you just get little hints of it. I love bitter greens, so sometimes I can just eat a salad of bitter greens with some lemon juice and olive oil. It's a little bitter for a lot of people, so roasting it works really well. Sometimes I just quarter it and throw it in the oven with some olive oil and salt and roast it up. It's a little more palatable. How do other people eat their radicchio?
The only time I've had radicchio is in our tasting lab too. So, however we've made it every time, it's usually, I think, actually I have had it with like cheese over it one time. I think it was fried. But yeah.
Yeah.
So Monica, a really fun thing for Evergreen students. And I'm just saying, I'd love to meet, if people are willing, that who aren't in the class who are with us, I'd love to meet you and see, you know, just say hi so we know who you are. And it's just been fun having more people here. But that's a call in, not a call out if people don't want to do that. But a little bit of heads up for students. We tasted it in the fall after a really hot summer, and it was bitter. And I thought I was afraid I would turn students off for the rest of their lives, right? So we served it. The last thing we did was serve people a handful of a salad, which was what I was served at a Walla Walla farmer's market the very first time I bought a radicchio, because we've been experimenting with radicchio in the Pacific Northwest to extend the green season. That farmer wouldn't let me buy or taste the radicchio until I'd had the salad first, because the salad mixed an acid, a sweet, right? And umami. Like, it was this incredible salad that put an oil with a apple cider vinegar or a sherry vinegar, and it had some apples in it, right? And people loved that salad. The advantage now for people that got to taste this when it was really bitter, this stuff survived the winter. This is very little bitterness compared to what it was before. So please enjoy that about it. To me, at least, it tasted really different than when we had it in the fall. And I suggested to Evergreen folks, always soak your radicchio in cold water for at least a good hour before you go to eat it, because it plumps it up and it really takes away some of the most sharpness of the bitter for most people.
Nice. Thank you, Sarah. That's super helpful. So today we're going to fry it up till it's like brown, and I don't know if we can get it crispy, but just fried up in some olive oil, and we're going to put that over the top of our soup, and it's going to add just a really nice, nutty, bitter, little bit of bitter flavor to our soup that is just going to be really, really great. We're also going to take our sprig of olive oil. God, I can't talk today. Our sprig of rosemary. And in that first pan of olive oil, you're just going to lay down your sprig of rosemary on one side for a minute or two and on the other side for a minute or two and let it sizzle and turn brown. In the other pan, we're going to throw our radicchio. You hear them sizzling? Sprinkle a little salt over the radicchio to bring out the flavor. Turn in my rosemary over so it gets the other side. Give my radicchio a stir. Check my cheesy leeks. It should be just about done. Okay, now I've got this charred piece of rosemary. Looks like this, and the olive oil that I charred it in. Ouch. Careful, it's a little splattery. And I'm gonna pour the olive oil right onto my bean dip. And look at that, you got the rosemary infused olive oil on there, your charred rosemary to go in a restaurant. Now take a carrot or a cracker, a piece of bread, and taste that bean dip now that you've poured the rosemary oil over it. Mmm. I could make a meal out of the rosemary or the bean dip and the delicata. Alrighty, my cheesy leeks are done. Taking them out of the oven. Look at that brown top on there. They're sizzling. This is one of Bryn's favorite foods you see in the background. Cheesy leeks. Yeah. How's the radicchio?
Are we pulling apart the radicchio leaves or just like whole?
We chop them up into pieces. Or you can chop them after you fry them, if you've already got them on the pot.
You can just braise the full leaves Carly, that's another way to eat it. Or you can toss the full leaf on a grill if you happen to be outside. It can be delicious like that. For this, I tried it 2 ways. I chopped it really small and I put that on top of my hot soup bowl and just stirred it in, and it kind of wilted it, and it was good. But I was surprised that the texture actually held up better in the soup if I had fried it first. And I don't understand that, but it did. And I like the texture of it lightly fried more than I liked it raw, which was the opposite of what I thought I would have expected. So play with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it fried up. So is anybody got their cheesy leeks out of the oven? Mine tastes amazing.
So delicious. All of it is so delicious.
Oh, thank you. Isn't this just like comfort food, these cheesy leeks? All right, so we got our squash, our cheesy leeks, our bean dip. I'm gonna take that that radicchio off the stove. Mine's nice and fried up now. And I'm just popping the soup with it. Now again, if I had just used the yellow potatoes, my soup would be a more, I don't know, restaurant version consistency, but I use the blues and the reds. So it's kind of an odd color, but I don't know if you can see it. I don't think I can tilt it enough, but it's got the fried radicchio just lying on top, and it looks so pretty. That those purples are just unbelievable. Can you see it at all?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so let's give our soup a taste. Make sure you get a piece of radicchio in there. You got all the flavor. You got the leeks. That radicchio gives you a little crunch still, even after it's fried. You can taste the potatoes. You got that bean, garlic. Anybody else? Try your soup. Oh, and we're 5 minutes over time, but we did pretty good making 4 dishes. 2 hours. Kept you on your feet, huh? Kept you on your toes. There goes Casey. Yeah? Tell us about it.
It's super good. Yeah, the radicchio, I think frying it definitely like eliminates a bit of that bitterness, and then on top of the bean dip, it's a very hearty soup, but I might have to like toast up some bread for it too.
It's
very good.
Really good with like some good crusty bread, kind of.
Yep. Yeah, I might have to find some of that.
It's a good one. Well, all right, I get to leave you all with a lovely lunch to enjoy. Any last comments, questions?
Thank you for running us through this great meal.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Monica. That was amazing.
Well, thanks for coming, Caleb, and talking about the garden. That was super cool. I love all this stuff that came from the garden.
I'm really appreciative. Yeah, thank you so much. That was so much fun. It was really good to see all of you all again.
Hey, folks, and a heads up, I am happy to say that Martha Rosemeyer and I found some funding. And if you go to Handshake, if you're an Evergreen student, there are positions posted right now so that you can be paid to revive, regenerate the herb garden, the community garden, gardens in general, recruit for farm and garden programs on campus, and or work with the food bank for hunger issues on campus. There's 4 positions advertised right now. So Caleb, your legacy continues.
That is amazing. That is so amazing.
Good job, Sarah. That's super cool.
Apply, students, tell everybody. And Monica, this was so fun. I hope you don't have to answer now, but I hope we might continue this with next year's program. I would love to.
Absolutely. It's been
Yay.
so much fun hearing about the class and what all you were studying. Sarah and I had the best conversation when we just first sat down to talk about it.
It's really fun.
Excited about the same things, like it was really, really, really fun. So y'all are lucky to get to study with her. And thank you, Susan, for sharing this goat cheese appetizer. That looks so good. Can't wait to try it. Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Enjoy.
I'm going to save these chats because it's got some good stuff in there.
Yep. And then Monica, if you're happy to send the links or tell me when you posted them, I'll let students know that it's up on I'm not going to put it on our website, but I'm going to refer people to your website whenever you get them posted if you decide to do that.
Perfect. Yeah, we're definitely going to do that. We had a really great raw basics class that has some really amazing, like the instructor just made it all look so easy, making coconut cream and nut milk and sauerkraut. Like it was super cool. We got something I'd never heard of before we got Zoom bombed at the beginning, and it was horrific. And now I know not to allow screen sharing.
Wow. And that was using the same Eventbrite system?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it is very accessible, which has been really fun because we've gotten people from all over the country joining, and most of them just want to be there. But yeah, this was awful. We had to shut it down and restart it in a different link and lost a bunch of people. So
yeah,
I'm glad that we're putting them online because then everybody can have access.
Excellent. Monica, I've got to go, but maybe you've got, maybe Diane and Zoe, are these questions for Monica? Hey, Zoe, are you still with us? Do you have a question or concern? Monica, thank you so much. I loved it.
My pleasure. That was super fun. And yeah, I'll let you know. I'm still all these learning curves because this is my first quarter of classes. But I am hoping that some of the folks are interested in teaching some stuff. And so one of my learning curves is how to get online. We do have a YouTube channel, so I'll probably get it on there first and can send people the links to there, and then we'll get it on our website. We'll see which happens first.
Great. YouTube is great. My limited experience is YouTube is great because they have this whole institution that protects their stuff, and the learning management systems that most colleges are using, which is called Canvas and YouTube cut some deals. So there's a really beautiful interface between anything that's posted on YouTube and Canvas. So that's great from an academic point of view. That's
great.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but yeah, we'll be in touch. And I do want to get some feedback about the classes, so I'll probably even send out a feedback form.
If you have a link to the bean song, could you provide it?
Oh yes, and the braised leeks. Yes, I'll send out an email afterwards.
Thank you, because one of the 3 tracks of the TASTE program, the people not doing cooking, there is a music track. So it would be really fun for our track to take the bean song back to the music folks.
Yeah, you told me that, and I meant to play my banjo and sing that song, but
oh, come on, 4 recipes plus a concert? You couldn't pull that off in 2 hours?
Just too much else. But Jimmy Joe, he's a community member. He's all about music. He has this podcast, and he recorded us doing that song. So there is a video out there of my band doing the song. So I'll share that when I find
Jimmy
it.
Joe, okay, if you don't mind sending me the link, that would be fantastic. I'd love to take that back. Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Monica.
All right. Good to see you, Sarah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.